So you're watching episode 3 of the Lincolnshire Runner Show, and tonight it's about the local Bob Graham round heroes. Some of you may or may not know about the Bob Graham, but whether you do or don't, you're going to learn a lot more tonight. So keep an eye out for future shows. So we're hoping to do these every 2 weeks whilst we're still in lockdown, and we'll keep doing them before. So if you get any ideas for any future shows, any types of guests you'd like us to have on, please pop a comment, send either myself or Anna a message, privately, get in touch, and we'll go from there. So I'm one host, Shane from Vegetable Therapy. So I'm going to pass you over to my other host now, Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna from Lindum Exercise Therapy. Thanks for joining us tonight, and apologies again for the delay there. When you've got 6 people to try and get on screen at once, so apparently there are a few more technical issues that come up, so sorry about that. So tonight we've got our Bob Graham runners on, so loads to learn about the Bob Graham round. It's been fascinating talking to them, just getting us ready to this point, so I'm sure you're going to really enjoy what they've got to say tonight. So we've got with us Mark Baddeley, who you'll know from the shop, Chris Rainbow, Simon Blackman, and John Hobbs, all with varying experiences of fell running, all successful runners of the Bob Graham round. Millions and millions of miles of running between them, and probably even more stories to tell. So let's see if we can bring them in. We are going to bring them back in from the waiting room. So we've got Simon, John. Okay. And we should have Mark Boren as well. Brilliant. Hi everyone, good to have you all on with us today.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
So I've just done a quick intro, really, said a little bit about you and about the Bob Graham. Well, I haven't said anything about what the Bob Graham round is, so we're going to throw that out to you guys, really, to get you talking and sharing all your knowledge and experience with everybody that's joined us from the Lincolnshire Runner tonight. So I'll kick off. Probably the best thing to do is to kick off with an explanation of what the Bob Graham round is. So maybe if we start with Mark, do you want to just give us a little bit of background information on what the Bob Graham round is?
Yeah, I'll be brief. Some of others might do a better job, but basically it's 42 tops of in the Lake District with a guy called Bob Graham who first did it. I believe he did 41 when he was 41, but he failed for some reason, and so when he was 42, he had to add another one on, so he ended up doing 42 tops. So you've got 24 hours to do it in. I think he did it in just under 24 hours. To go in the Bob Graham Club, actually, you have to do it in under 24 hours. From that, you can split it into 5 legs, leg 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, obviously, and you get people to help you on them legs, and they have to verify every single top with you and the time that you got there, and each sort of road crossing sort of between legs. And yeah, it starts and finishes at Keswick at Moot Hall, and yeah. John, anyone, you want to elaborate any more than that, you're welcome to.
That's it, isn't it, really? In a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about 66 miles since it's been measured accurately. 28,000 feet of ascent and descent, over 42 peaks. And as Mark said, it splits into 5 different legs, which are all slightly different in character. Some of them are very rocky, some of them a bit more runnable, and the idea is to get around the whole lot in under 24 hours if you can.
Brilliant.
With the help of your friends.
And actually, before we carry on, I should have given you all the opportunity to sort of say a bit more about yourselves and your sort of experience with the Bob Graham round. So while we were just talking to John, maybe could you just let us know when you did the Bob Graham round, how long ago that was? And
I did it in 2004. And yeah, so do you want to just do the dates first, or do you want me to talk about that a little bit?
Can do, yeah. Maybe say a little bit about your experience. I know that the people watching have seen the little profiles that we've had up during the week, so maybe just a little bit from those, just to sort of refresh everybody of which profile goes with which of you.
Yeah, I mean, I did it in 2004 when I first heard about the Bob Graham round. I hadn't actually been going to the Lake District for long. I started going walking in the lakes with my wife Teresa not long after we'd met, and I've always been a runner, but my background comes from track and road, and I didn't really have an idea of anything to do with fell running or anything like that. I saw the Bob Graham round in the back of a book of walks around the Lake District and thought, oh, that'd be good fun. I'll have a crack at that without really understanding anything that it involved. And, took it from there, really. And trained over a period of about a year. There wasn't so much information around back then as there is now. So it was there was one website which was fairly basic, but it gave you things like a schedule and things. So I knew what all the peaks were, but I worked it out from looking at maps and things. Met people whilst I was training who got involved in helping to pace me, and it took me 2 attempts, but the second time I got round it. And there's more stories that we could talk about from that. But,
yeah, well, we'll definitely come back and touch on it as we get. There's a few things there that you said that I'm like, oh, we'll pick up on that later. So yeah, we'll definitely a bit more. What about
I think
you,
Chris
Simon?
was next after me.
It's not sorry.
Chris was the next after me.
Let's go to Chris next. Then that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I did my round in 2010, but I did PE at Birmingham University in the 80s, and we were in the Lake District. It must have been 1985. And one of our tutors was a guy called Mike Kudahay. Now, in long distance circles, he was a legend at the time, because he'd just recently become the first man to run the Pennine Way in under 3 days. So I think there's still only 2 people who have ever done it. And we were on a walk on this like Outward Bounds week one night, and we must have been walking out of Keswick towards sort of Portinscale Way, and he said, "Oh, I've heard of the Bob Graham round going on tonight." And this group of like wiry sort of mounted men passed us, and he stopped and had a chat. And for the next sort of hours, when we got to the youth hostel, he told us all about the Bob Graham round. And I think Mark Kudahay had done his in something like 1977. He's like in the top, I think he's 88 on the list. So he was one of the first people to get round. And at the time when he talked about the round, you just think, well, it's literally for sort of man and supermen. I've got no chance whatsoever. I was sort of 20 years later, I read Richard Asquith's book, Feet in the Clouds, which basically is a story of a pretty average run. And over the course of 3 or 4 years, he eventually does on his 3rd attempt get round. Reading that, I suddenly thought, hold on, this Bob Graham round I'd heard of 20 years ago. So maybe I could do it. Yeah. And the bad thing was I didn't know anybody who did mountain running. And after a Heckington 10 one year, a friend introduced me to John. He was the first person I'd sort of known locally who'd done it. And John said, I've heard you thinking about doing a round. A few months later, I got a bad neck or a bad back, so I started seeing John. And lying on his treatment table, he was giving me sort of tips and just a spark to have a go, basically. So I think at the end of 2009, when I started seeing John, I think you have to make that big leap and think, right, I'm going to really go for it. Yeah. And I decided at the start of 2010, and by the summer of 2010, the end of June, I eventually got round.
Wow. Well, it's quite a leap, Heckington 10 to the Bob Graham round, but I like it. Very good. So I think next would have been Mark, was it? Were you next, or was it Simon? No, Mark before Simon, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did the Bob Graham in 2016, so quite a bit later. Basically, I think it was all John's fault again. I'd been running like John and Chris. We've all got a background in cross-country running, track running. I'd been running for about 20 years at the time. And I guess I was maybe a little bit fed up of it. And I don't know, I ended up going to have a go at this thing called the Coast to Coast. And I was chatting to John about it. And And so I had a bit of a recce, and I got to the Lake District and didn't go any further. And I think another conversation with John after that, and he told me about a thing called the Bob Graham, and so I looked it up, and it looked like the scariest thing ever, because I'm scared of heights and I can't do mountains. So I thought, oh, this could be quite good. Although I find them scary, I absolutely love them. I think they look amazing. I think they just look brilliant, and moving around them feels amazing. I just get scared. So for me, it was like, oh, I wonder if I could do the Bob Graham in like 5 days, a leg a day. So I went off on leg one and got up to there, and I was terrified. I didn't know where to go next to the second top, and I got someone to direct me, and I managed to get to Blencathra at the third top, and I wouldn't come down, so I had to find an alternate route down. So then I rang John again and got some more advice, and he says I was going to go up to leg two, I think, and on leg two, I was halfway up the first one, and he says, I think I nearly called him because he was saying I was a certain line between two gullies, and I was shaking halfway up. And anyway, for long story short, I'm not going too far into detail. Again, I refused. I think it was Fairfield. I wouldn't go up Fairfield in the end because it was just too steep. So I got my mate Paul Samways to come join me, and Paul hadn't done any mountain running, but he was a lot better with heights. And then we had to go at leg 3 and 4 together. We had a quite scary moment going up Bow Fell where I thought I was going to die. I didn't, obviously, and we had a really good time. Paul nearly died on Newbarrow, so that was kind of balanced itself out, I guess, a little bit there. And it was really, really funny, but I'll not go into that story. And I decided that was it. I needed more help. So I got Simon, Marcus, Russ, Chris and John, and they all came and helped me. So we all drove from Lincoln at different points at different times. We stayed overnight. I remember me and John staying overnight in just near Threckhold, freezing cold ice, in our tents. And then when I stayed with Chris, he was in a lovely warm car. So that meant I then went out and bought a van. Yeah, it's and it was just us working together that helped me have the confidence to actually achieve it and do it. And that was the big thing. And I didn't think I could do it, but I needed them people around me to help me do it. Because if I didn't, I don't think I'd ever have gone up some of these tops. Especially from Scafell, Pike to Scafell. I mean, Chris knew what I was like when we did the climbers traverse. Yeah, it was a hairy moment. And what was that descent, Chris, off that gully? I went, whoa, what are you doing? Yeah, that was a moment that on my own I'd never got around that. So yeah, like John says, it's something you do with all your mates, and yeah, so and they all helped me on the day, so it was just brilliant. Yeah.
And lots of mental sort of barriers to overcome then, as well as that physical training, it sounds like.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, I think I always feel for me I can overcome them, but you have to do it, and it's not so easy on your own. And that's why I got the strength from other people, even though maybe they didn't realise it. I knew I could do it as long as I had some people that were with me. I thought, right, I could definitely do this. And I kind of kept a bit to myself, but yeah, that's what physically I felt all right. But yeah, for me, mentally, it was like, when you're on some of the easier ones and you're shaking, it's going to be a challenge, and it was.
And what about you then, Simon?
Yeah, I was 2017, so only a couple of years ago, actually, for those that can remember, so 2017. But unlike these boys, I didn't come from a running background. I didn't start running until I was about 35. I got straight into trail and fell running, and similar to Chris, I read Feet in the Clouds and dreamed of wanting to be able to do the Bob Graham, but you soon come to a realisation that this is not an easy piece of work, and actually it's highly unlikely that you're going to achieve it on your own in isolation. So unfortunately, I compartmentalised it and actually put it away, and it's not something I was ever going to do. And until Mark actually reached out as somebody that just loved the running in the fells to say, would I help him? So we went up and we had a bit of a laugh, and yeah, we all nearly died in the snow with Chris. And but you go up a couple more times, and actually it was only on our third attempt at leg 2 where we decided to have a stupidly fast session that you suddenly realise, actually, you might stand a chance of doing this. So similar to the others, you actually put in a year's worth of training, and you actually recognise what it is that it takes to complete this, and you stand a chance of actually realising your dream. So for me, yeah, it was only a couple of years ago, and probably only about 5 years into running, actually. I'm not as fast as these boys, so I probably had to work a little bit harder in the training. But yeah, you can do it. It's a great day out with, again, with all the friends.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant, and great to hear that the sort of the passion of others is almost sort of dragged you along to get going and give it a go. Brilliant. Right, I should hand over to Shane. Let Shane ask a question.
Yeah, so I mean, next thing we were going to ask you was what prior experience do you need to give it a shot? But listen to some of the answers you've given from the last question. I guess I'm wondering how many friends give it a shot. But from a couple of you did touch up on what experience you'd already had before you decided. Is there anything you'd recommend as like a bare minimum, almost like an entry standard, entry requirement to actually think I'm going to go and do the Bob Gray? I mean, Mark mentions about obviously not being fond of heights. Obviously, if he's actually going off and training on his own, how realistic, how safe is it to do that?
I mean, for me, doing the heights thing was it was safe because what I was doing was safe. I wasn't going to die, but it was just you do get a fear where you turn around and you go back, or you find an easy way around. So I say it's maybe if I'd gone up my first time ever in the Lake District and decided that the clag was down and I was going to go and dump myself up Wasdale somewhere, then yeah, it's a little bit unsafe. But I didn't do that. I made sure that it was a pretty clear day and I knew where the routes were to get me back to where sort of safety is, if you like. So from that point of view, it was okay. I don't know, maybe John or one of those maybe wants to talk about the how fit you need to be or what you need to do before.
Well, I think to get round, you don't have to be a runner of a really high standard to be able to do it. You can be, a reasonable runner, work really, really hard to get fit enough, and then, and put the miles in the fells just to get yourself tough enough, learn the route, and then accept it's going to be painful, take the suffering, and don't give up. And I don't think it's something that's out of the reach of most runners of a certain level. It's not an elite thing. It's very hard, but it's a mental thing. Get yourself fit enough, go in and put the hours in, and I think it's attainable for a lot of people. I don't know. What do you two think?
I think the hard thing is actually committing to it. Yeah. It's like Simon said, you've got this idea of I want to do this challenge in the future, but you can always come up with more excuses not to do it than to do it, basically. So you need to say, right, I'm going to go up to the Lake District, I'm going to walk up a mountain, just get out there, just get the ball rolling. You don't need three of us had very little sort of fell running experience before we sort of embarked on our Bob Graham journey. So it's not like you need a lot of fell running background. You just need that sort of breakthrough, I suppose, just to sort of get out there and give it a crack.
Committing to it logistically when you live in Lincolnshire isn't easy either. It's a lot of hours travelling and putting the hours in, and support from the family, things like that. So that's a big aspect if you live here.
Yeah. And
I remember your commute to work quite long, didn't it, Mark? Some weekends.
the commute to work.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
On a Monday morning, you'd often be driving to work from the lake.
Yeah.
Stay over.
I'd leave Cumbria at 4:30 in the morning to get to work in Lincoln. But yeah, there was Simone, so I was doing it to see her too. So that helped. Yeah, like they've said, commitment is huge. Once you decide, right, I'm going to do this, it's so easy to say, oh, I'll not bother. Oh, it's a long way. It's going to take 3.5 hours to get there, sat in a car, and it's going to cost 70 quid of fuel. But yeah, you've got to have that high level of commitment and drive. And if you haven't got that, then you won't do it. And I think that's something that all of us have got. I mean, you commit to your road running and track running in the same way. You'll travel a long way for stuff. So I guess you understand the nature of it. I'm interested, like, to hear from Simon actually about what he thinks, especially with the fitness level that you think you need. What do you think, Simon?
So I suppose to help put some numbers around those that are listening in, I can't see why, let's say, a 45-minute 10K, I can't achieve this if they really wanted to. I think I had to do a lot of training. So I think for about 12 weekends in a row, I drove up to the Lake District. If you do your research, they say you should be ideally climbing 10,000 feet a week to help get you strong. So you've got to remember, when we're talking about running, the average pace of a Bob Graham round is 20-minute miles, 3 miles an hour. This isn't about running. This is about the strength of your legs to be able to handle the ups and handle the downs. So if you're not going up, you're coming down, and it is just that relentless pounding of your legs that you've just got to get them conditioned to. So I do think it is achievable for a lot of people. I say, and you don't have to come from a fast background. I suppose if you go back from a history point of view, this was seen as a walking challenge, not a running challenge. You've just got to be able to walk at a good, strong pace. And no doubt there will be those from the Long Distance Walking Association that's never run a day in their life that could probably pound this down. So that's just something else to consider for those that want to give it a go.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. So if you are sort of a regular runner and you want to give it a shot, how does that then affect your running? So if you're used to doing a couple of 10Ks and maybe a half marathon in a year, what about the year where you're doing the Bob Graham training? Can you still keep those kind of races going, or do you have to put that side to one side for a bit?
Well, I'll let Mark probably answer that from a coaching point of view. But if you come back to what's your priority, for me, there was no other priority in my life for that 12 months of the year. All I wanted to do was get myself prepared for the Bob Graham. So I never went to Mark to ask, how do I fit a 10K race in or a half marathon race? And I think that's, I suppose, an important part. What do you want to prioritise and focus on? No doubt there'll be similars in terms of strength training and the like. But Mark, what does Coach Baddeley say?
Well, when I did mine, 6 weeks after I did Skidder Fell race, and which is a bit like doing a 10-mile road race, except you go up a really, really big mountain for over 4.5 miles, and you turn around and come back down. But time-wise, I think it's something like 1 hour 20. All right, it's probably a bit more like a half marathon. I ran really well 6 weeks after, but for 4 weeks I was kind of in a bad way. But then I recovered and came back really strong. For me, I think, yeah, you got to go a lot slower, and a lot of your training runs are a lot slower. I think for those that were pretty maybe unfit beforehand, it will boost their fitness. For those that maybe are in really good, like 10K shape, really good half marathon shape, it might not improve them times while you're doing the long stuff. If anything, maybe it might give you stronger legs and make you in the long run a little bit better, a bit further down the year. But at that current time, you may not be quicker. But you never know. I mean, every person's different. So I think one individual might improve for reasons that you don't realise. You know, you could shed 4 or 5 kilos by doing the mileage, and all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 kilos lighter by doing all the miles for the Bob Graham, and that will make you faster on anything. So I guess there's lots of factors that you could sort of look at with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you want to ask something, Shane, or shall I carry on?
No,
I think part of the thing about the pace, though, you know, you may say 20-minute miling, but the terrain's pretty rough. You know, if you're running over Sussex bogs and boulders, you know, it's 20-minute miling is working pretty hard on occasions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, going up Barrow or going up Skidder or going up Scuffet, like they're slower than 20-minute miling, and there's you know, you're going up Bowfell or Scaffell, you know, you're going way slower than 20 miles because you're scrambling, aren't you, at times?
But still,
even though you're walking, it's not a stroll, is it? You're grafting. The walking sections, it's harder work than flat sections. But even though you're going at that walking pace, you're grinding it out. It's not like going for, you know, walking the dog or something.
And a lot of time you've already done, like, I mean, you some of these walks climbing and using a lot of strength to get up these mountains, and you're like 14, 15, 16 hours into it of doing that as well, and the cumulative fatigue of all that.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned, so like sort of the change in terrain, so not just elevation and everything, but also the what it is underfoot, if it's boggy or rocky or whatever. What kind of kit do you think people need? If somebody was interested, would you say these are the absolute musts that you need in your kit?
Time of year maybe can vary that, yet what underfoot's like, that would have a bit of an impact. Like if you've been wet or dry, I say that would have a little bit of an impact.
Sorry, what kind of kit? I think you might have missed the question. But is there anything special that you would like that you think people need in their kit? So in terms of your footwear or your clothing, or what sort of special extras do you need in your kit collection?
Go on, Simon. I can see you're ready.
Well, I suppose from a safety point of view, you should always follow the minimum that the guidance you would get on the FRA. So you do all, regardless of the time of year, you should really be having waterproof hat, waterproof coat, waterproof trousers, hat, gloves, and then depending on how cold it's going to get, extra layers, because it can get quite scary. It's probably advisable that you take a bivvy bag with you as well, because you don't know what's going to happen, and some way to actually communicate with people. But you're quite right, you can set off and it'll be red hot, and John had to help me out with liquid because I just didn't have enough. It was so hot. But there's been times where I've gone through ice bogs up to your waist, and you're struggling with those around you to try and keep warm, knowing that you've still got another 2 hours just to get to the bottom. So I suppose safety has to come first. But I say as a minimum, you've got to be taking full waterproof clothing and hat and gloves and extra layers.
Yeah.
But your pacers take your gear generally, like
On your rack.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I think. So I guess it's a personal thing.
Yeah, I would. That's definitely an important point. So I recognised that I was struggling to take on the fuel. So even though my fitness was right, I knew that if I couldn't sort the nutrition out, I wasn't going to finish the last 2 legs. I suppose that's the idea of the training. You need a plan B. So for me, it was ham and cheese sandwiches and saurine and pork pies and custard. But actually, after 16 hours, I got sick of that, and I couldn't take any more. So what's your go-to fuel when you fail on the first amount? So no, it's a massive problem, Shane, that you've got to overcome, hopefully during training.
Chris and John, I'm really interested to know what you did, because I never really chat to you about it. What did you take and eat, and how could you stomach it and stuff?
I tried as much as possible on the first 2 legs to try and stay away from too much sugar, basically. So I'd got peanut butter sandwiches and nuts and things like that. And during the training, I suppose really I just concentrated on, it is almost training yourself to eat and keep going as well. So trying to get something in every 20 minutes and just experiment with lots and lots of different foods. I'm not a great fan of gels and that sort of thing. So I tend to eat sort of more real food. But I think on the day, or even on a long training run, if you've got like a big variety of stuff, just like Simon says, you think, oh yeah, this will do the trick, or that'll do the trick. When you've been going for 16 hours, everything that you've got in your bag, you just can't face, getting down. And it's then this sort of support comes in sometimes and says, oh, have this, and it's like, oh, Kendall mint cake, or you've done it was like a bounty bar. And you think, oh, that just sort of does the trick. So yeah, more real food. I try to eat.
Yeah, I think that variety of stuff. I think if you, sometimes you'll fancy a bounty bar, but then sometimes you'll want something like a bag of crisps or a pork pie or a pickled onion. Just something that makes your stomach feel different, makes you want, just takes you away from that thing that's making you want to bath, and something that you can keep down, and it just changes the feel, and then you can start eating properly again.
Did Chris, John, did any of you have a problem with it, like wanting to be sick or anything, or were you okay?
My first round was a bit of a cock up because I overslept at the start and hadn't eaten before I set off, and I didn't eat enough on the first leg, so I was, I mean there was that. There was that. I got a bit injured as well, so that's why I didn't get round. But so I was very conscious of that on the second attempt, and so I was really really focused on making sure I ate enough. I had a big meal before I set off. So I remember talking to somebody before I started, and they said you want to feel a bit queasy on the first climb from having eaten a bit too much, and so I sort of set off with a good meal inside me. At all my road crossings, Teresa was watching me, waiting to pick me off coming off the fell side, and I had tin spaghetti smash, which I never ate. I had a Complan, the old liquid food things that people used to have back then, because it was full of minerals and stuff, and then just a variety of other stuff, tin fruit and things like that. Just like a thing where you could kind of pick from what you fancied. But I always had the tin spaghetti, always left the smash, and always forgot my banana and left it on the chair as I set off.
That's funny.
We've just had a question actually that's just come in, which is interesting to hear all four of you, because I don't know if you did your Bob Grahams at similar times of year, but how did you choose the time of year to do it? What and the start, and also your start time. Interested actually to know what John says there, because you said that you'd slept in on the first attempt, and I can't imagine sleeping in when I was about to go and do something like that. So I find that really interesting.
I can imagine.
Well,
start time.
Most people try to go for when there's the most daylight, so around this time of year, May, June. May's slightly cooler, and then I think most people tend to look at sort of like a midnight start time, because then the first you end up on the second leg then at dawn. The second leg is fast and runnable, so you're running it in good light and conditions. But on my second attempt, as I say, I went to bed to try and get some sleep. I was going to wake up about 11 or 10:30 or something to head off to go and get ready, having had something to eat. And Nick, who was pacing me up, who introduced me to Chris, Nick paced me on my first leg, and about 1:15 to midnight, he sort of whispered through the tent wall, "Shouldn't you be getting up now?" And it just instead of doing the sensible thing and thinking we'll start at 1 instead, he just went into a blind panic and ran off there, and it just all went very wrong. But then when I did my second attempt, which was about 6 weeks later, I'd made contact with a guy from Dark Peak Fell Runners who had an attempt on the same day as me, and he'd actually got round, but in 24 hours and 20 minutes. So he'd completed the round, but not within the time. So he decided he was really fit, so he was going to give it another go. So some of my pacers couldn't help me on my second attempt, so we sort of cobbled together a plan that we'd do it together. But then he hurt his ankle in a fell race, so he actually paced me on 2 legs, but didn't actually do it with me. But because he was from Dart Peak, if I'll get back to the point, because he was from Dart Peak, they always have a big club attempt once a year, and they always set off at 6 o'clock. So that became the time we were going to set off. And that's a little bit easier in terms of tiredness, because it's not, you're starting earlier in the day, so you're not already, you've not already gone all the way through a day when you start at midnight. But but you've still got to cover the ground. You've still got to run through the night, unless you're going to do it in 14 hours.
Yeah.
I started at 1 a.m, so just after midnight, and it was the 26th of June, so you've got maximum daylight. And I only had real darkness probably for the first 2 hours. But by sort of 3 o'clock, it was a lovely clear night. It was coming up the back of Great Calver. You could turn the head torches off. And then by the time I got off the last summit, Robbington, and running down the road to Keswick, it was 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I only really had that first couple of hours in the darkness, really, which is fantastic.
Yeah, because what time? So did you do it around May, June time as well, then, Chris?
I did mine on the 26th of June.
Okay.
Partly because it was a good time of year in terms of daylight, and also because I promised myself that I'd do the Bob Graham round when I was 42, the same age as Bob Graham, and I turned 43 on the 27th of June. So I snuck in before I got older, basically.
Nice.
So I did mine on the 28th of May, and it was John that helped me pick the date. Again, like John's to blame for it. And he said that because it was a bank holiday weekend, it was really wise, actually. He was like, if you get a bad day weather-wise, you can put it back a day, and most people who's helping you can probably adjust and help you. Whereas if you just picked it where they're going to be going back to work on Monday, if the weather's bad, you just got to bear with it. So I thought that was quite good. So then it gave you almost like a 2-day window of doing the Bob Graham over the bank holiday rather than the 1 day. As it was, the first day of it was great. May was actually quite early. And actually, it's you got to get your training in early on in the year. You really got to get at it quick if you're going to do it in May. And that's one thing I would say, if you're looking to do one early, is you've got to start getting up there in March and start getting some weekends in. I started at midnight. I think again it's midnight. I think Bob Graham did it midnight or 1. And again, like Chris, I was trying to emulate, do it at 42 years old. I think I made a blunder because I think it was 1 a.m. he started at, but I thought it was midnight, so I started at midnight. The only negative to that is that obviously you have when you're about to go to sleep, you've been awake all day, you start your round. So like John said, like 2 o'clock actually isn't a bad time to start, but as it was, it didn't seem to impact me anyway, the sleep deprivation, so that was okay. But I also like Chris's way of doing it in June, where you only get like hardly any nighttime. I mean, I only had the dark on the leg 1, and that was it. And to be fair, that was quite a comfortable leg with Chris. And from what I remember, Chris, there was no wind, and we had our head torches on. There was no clag, and it was just brilliant. So we had no issues with that. So it was fine. Good fun.
So for all the reasons that Mark just stated, that's why I went off at 7 o'clock at night. So it was the same weekend actually, so end of May, bank holiday weekend, but the thought of actually staying up till midnight and then trying to run, when I suppose all of my years I've been running, you run of an evening. So for me, I set off at 7 o'clock at night. I did therefore have to have something like 6 hours of running in the dark. But because you knew that was going to come, I prepared for that. So There was another member of LDR came up with me, and actually we set off at 8 o'clock at night, and we decided to run the whole of leg 2, finishing at about 1 in the morning, just to prepare yourself that this is what you're going to expect. So can you move at pace? So that start time is very much dependent on the amount of light you're going to get, and whereabouts on the round are you going to not get that light. I don't think anybody had probably advised doing leg 3 in the dark. And depending on how fast you are and the time of year, you may be able to get round with, like Chris, with very little dark whatsoever. So yeah, I went off a lot earlier than Mark.
So there's a lot of it really is personal preference, I guess, as well as that, like say, planning where you're going to be in the dark as well. You don't want to be at some of those hairy parts.
Also,
earlier in the darkness. Sorry, John.
When I did my second attempt, it was late July, because obviously it was 6 weeks after my first one. And another thing is the conditions change. You know, at that time of year, the bracken is chest height. So a lot of areas that were, that were just ankle deep and runnable, you couldn't actually see the ground quite so well. So that's a consideration as well, something like that.
Yeah.
Good point.
Should we move on to the next question?
Yep, go on, Shane.
So, what is it in route planning and your recce? So, I guess we're talking. Sorry, I'll go again. What is involved in your route planning and your recce days? Personally, I guess, depending on if you plan it around, speak about obviously light and dark and elements like that. Did you get me?
I suppose for those that don't know, there's a very handy Bob Graham map that you can get that splits all of the route down. So the navigation is I suppose mapped out for you. What you've got to do is learn exactly where you are and how to move from peak to peak safely through, whether either by memory or utilising map and compass or even GPS technology or friends that actually know where they're going. For me, in terms of the recce's, I did, a good 10 to 12 weekends on the bounce by going up and literally just starting to memorise the route, trying to not cause too much damage to the environment by just recognising that there are different ways to go up and down things. But for me, it was a case of you've got to do the miles. So I'd leave Lincoln at 6 in the morning, get to the lakes at 9:30, and then you'd be out for 8 hours or so doing an amount of recceing, and then stay overnight, and then either do more the following day and then coming home. And often there'll be the guys joining me or other members, or sometimes you just be on your own because you've got to do the training.
And I think you mentioned something earlier, John, about all the you've got to be committed enough to do those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for me, I was. I travel up with Teresa, my wife, and because I did all my recce's on my own. So I'd travel up with Teresa. She'd drop me at the start of a leg, pick me up at the end of it. To start off with, I'd just do one leg, and then as I was getting fitter and learning the routes and finding out what it was all about, I'd be doing double legs. And then I started trying to. I think the longest run I did training wise was I ran the first half of the round, all in one. But I did that by gauging it that I was setting off at the same sort of time for daylight and night time. So because I was planning a midnight start, I think I set off at about 2 in the morning, so that it would be getting light at around about the same time. Just trying to recreate what I was doing, but. Yeah, I mean, as I say, Teresa would drive me up. I'd do the run, get back in the car. She'd drive home with me asleep in the passenger seat. Great company.
So a great website, actually.
Sorry?
There's a great website. Bob Whiteman. He's a Bob Graham, and on there, this is what I use. Basically. There's detailed notes for every section. So as well as Simon mentioned, I mean they're quite intimidating when you first see these notes, because it's all stuff like take a compass in a 38 degrees until you find a lone fence post. From the lone fence post, run for 4 minutes until you see a prominent boulder. And when you're first reading them, before you've actually gone on the route, you just think, how on earth am I going to get my head around this? But like I say, it's just a case of going up. I tended to maybe walk a leg first, just so I could take everything in. And then on these notes, there's quite a few little cheats where you're not taking the direct sort of walker's path up a peak. You might be taking, going up a gully or taking a sort of more direct route. And then, once I'd got the route in the head, basically I could go from there and do a bit longer, two legs on a day and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, with everything that you've sort of told us and all these challenges, the commitment that goes into the planning and overcoming the mental obstacles and all those things, why pick Bob Graham? Why this event? What was the appeal of it? Maybe Mark, if you want to tell us a little bit. I know. Just thinking about you overcoming the sort of fear of heights and etc. to deal with it. Why choose this as the event?
Well, from a kid, we used to go to North Wales, and one of my memories was going around the sort of a few low mountain tops, more like hills and the Bracken and things, and I don't know, it just sparked something that went, I really, really, really like this. And so as soon as I got to the Lake District, I didn't know it existed in the form. I just went there and was like, I've fallen in love with this place straight away. I don't know why. Maybe it was a certain age. I think it was because I was getting slower on the track and the road, so I wanted a different type of challenge, and I was looking for some long distance just to give it a go. And when I saw what it was just like it ticked every single box of what I wanted it to be. I wanted something with all these mountain tops, overcome the fears in the surroundings that it was, and an ultra. And it was just like, yeah, this does everything. And it's quite raw as well, because it's really uncommercialized, and it's something that you do. You don't. It's not even a race. You just do it on your own back at any point, and you do it with a group of friends, and it's great. But it's no one knows you're doing it. You just all start at Moot Hall, and they meet you at different points, and you finish, and you've got to send your details off, and hopefully they believe you and give you a certificate. But it's just that I don't know. Hopefully that explains it.
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, to me, it sounds like you just like the sort of rawness of it, really, rather than the structured race environment. You've got to sort of be out there, and am I interpreting that right? Or
yeah, I mean, it was the challenge of it all, with the heights, the challenge, but I fell in love with the lakes as well. And then added on top, which I didn't realise initially, was actually the friendship of everything. Yeah. But that came as an added bonus. And the experiences of the recce's with the friends, and then the day with the friends. So that came as like a third part in it, maybe, that was, the falling in love with the lakes, the getting rid of the fear of heights, and then actually this bond that you create with all these friends as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Shane, did you want to ask?
Sorry, I was miles away. It was a great listen to Mark's story. So we're going to direct this one at you, John, since obviously the first time you did it was 2004. So has it changed much? Advances in technology. Has it affected participation? Has it affected the support you get, or the soul and the experience of it? And obviously you seem to be Mr. Bob Graham in this group. So, you've helped a lot of people on their rounds. Have you noticed this?
I mean, I think these days the information's easier to get hold of, because you can. There's social media. The internet is better. There's more websites. You can use. There's things like Strava, where you can look where other people have run, work out routes and things. But I don't think really, and technology is better. It's easy. You can use a GPS watch and things and stuff like that. But I don't think that affects the nature of the challenge or the experience. Because okay, you could tag yourself, you could hire somebody to to guide you around it and just get really fit and go and have a go. But I think that the whole soul and experience of it is the fact that you go out there, do the hours on the hills, learn the route, get the feel of the beauty of the place you're in, make friends and do it with them. So I don't think that that's changed. I think that's just the same. I think it's accessible to more people. More people know about it. When I did it, I think there were about 30 people who completed the round in the year that I did it, and that was the first year that Feet in the Clouds had come out. So a lot of people had read that. I actually read it whilst I was training for it, and then that started to spark some interest. So there was a little bit of what they called it was considered a bit of a surge, because it had gone up from maybe 15 completions in a year to 30. And now you've got social media, and more people know about these sort of things, and ultra running and things like that. That's all become a popular, normal thing to do. So there's more people completing it, but it's still the same. If you do it in that way, where you get in, with a group of mates, go out and do the miles, love the area, it's just the same.
And actually, somebody's just asked is GPS allowed?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can navigate how you like. I mean, the best way to navigate is not to have to use anything, to know where you're going, learn the route, and have pacers with you, ideally, who also know where they're going and are experienced and know when to hand you a pork pie or a Bounty bar. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, GPS is fine.
A lot of contenders will actually have someone on their supports, if they're not overly familiar with the course, who actually navigate the route for them. So yeah, you can. I think there's only 2 rules for the Bob Graham Club. You've got to get around in under 24 hours, then you've got to have someone to ratify that you've been on every top. Yeah. Apart from that, anything goes, really.
Yeah, you can't do a solo attempt just using GPS and send off your GPS track. You've got to have people who sign your form and say you've been to the tops and they've been there with you.
Yeah. And you don't feel that having that GPS map to follow or anything doesn't change the experience particularly? It's still not enough to change it.
I guess I don't know. I guess if you just downloaded a GPX file, got really fit and went up and hammered round it, then that maybe isn't the same experience as putting all those hours in. But then I don't think you'd have to be a pretty exceptional runner to just go up there and do it off the back of no training there, because it's so different to running on the roads or anything like that. You've got to get yourself strong enough. So the training is part of the experience, but also makes it doable.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting from talking to you for, really, is that those recce days and that, when you're going out with your friends and trialing the route in advance, that sounds like a big part of what you get out of it, a big part of the enjoyment of taking part in this kind of challenge. So I can definitely see that.
The pub and freck out afterwards.
Yeah,
and that, of course. Okay, so sticking with that sort of support network in mind, let's talk to Chris a little bit. And can you tell us a little bit about what the support network was like during the training phase? So how did you kind of get support together for the actual round on the day, and what kind of support did you have through the training process?
I mean, I was a bit like John on the actual training. The fact that I knew very few people who ran in the hills meant that I did nearly all of the training by myself, basically. And then you come to 6 weeks before your round, and obviously you've got to have a support team in place. And the people I knew who were good runners were either not interested or were busy. And I ended up putting a post on the Runners Forum and just asking, does anybody fancy helping me out? And because of the nature of the Bob Graham, I got loads of people volunteering. I put a team together. I actually got a guy from Southall, Paul, who suggested we do a round together. So we set off, me and Paul set off together. We'd organised it so we'd share the support for the first 2 legs, and then we'd have our own support for the last 3 legs. And that seemed to go really well. But I think the thing with the Bob Graham, because it's such a sort of a camaraderie around it, you're always going to be getting people who've either done the round and want to sort of help out to get somebody else round, or you're going to get a group of people who have got a round in mind. And the perfect way to see if how fit you are for a Bob Graham is to volunteer to help somebody out, basically. So,
and what about because I think you mentioned in your when we had one of our email exchanges in the week about the people at the finish line and the support at the finish line. I think more the support crew who were cheering you in and perhaps meeting you at checkpoints rather than actually running with you. So, what kind of a role did those kind of supporters have, I suppose?
Well, yeah. You're meeting, you've got these 5 legs. You're meeting a couple of people at the start of each leg. You're spending 4, 5, 6 hours with those people, and then you're sort of saying goodbye, and then you're moving on to the next couple of people. And it seems like, for me at least, you come over a bridge, you get on Keswick High Street, and all of the people who are involved in your round, your wife who's been making teas and bacon butties for everyone who's been actually supporting you on your legs, all their wives, your kids, and there's such, and you're running up to those moot hall doors. You've got people who have come out of a pub who will be clapping you in, and people who have been doing a bit of shopping on the market, and you can feel absolutely destroyed running from Robinson into Keswick, thinking, can I just keep moving? As soon as you get those moot hall doors in sight, it's like you're supercharged. And I think with everyone I've seen, with Simon and with Mark, it's just, whoa, what a feeling. And and having everyone around there with you to share in that is fantastic.
Then you pass out there.
Okay. Feeling emotional just listening to that, Chris. I'm sure everybody else is as well. That's brilliant. And even looking at the guys' faces, I can see like that recognition of that is what it's like. That's great. Thanks, Chris. And Shane's back again. He keeps dipping out. I don't think it's
all right.
Okay, so just missed a great story from Chris as well. Hope you can catch up with it later.
Oh, I heard that. I was watching.
You're watching it. So everybody else, do you have any specific support related stories or anything like that related to your support crew? Feel similar to what Chris was saying.
Yes. I don't know if John was going to say something now, I reckon. Go on, John.
No, you go. Yeah.
I was going to say it's quite hard on them, especially the other half. Simone never slept. She was probably more tired at the end than me. So I think, it's really hard you're doing the Bob Graham, but actually it's quite tiring being part of the support. I know I wrote Chris into doing, I didn't realise at the time, leg 1 and 3, so he had go on, Chris, go and have 3 hours sleep if you can, and then come back and do another 6 hours, drive all the way to Wasdale and do it's just at the time you don't think, and it's kind of as a whole unit, do you know what? It's amazing. It is tiring, but it is amazing. But everyone involved, you don't get the sleep, and you don't get, but it's amazing. So it's fine. I mean, even Chris, I think I ran it, like you were saying, run into the moot hall. I ran in with both his kids, Archie and Ellie, which was really, and a few others as well. It is that kind of little community that you create in that day is is brilliant, but yeah, it can be tiring for them as well.
Oh, very much. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine the support is just so important for something like this. So I'm sure you found everybody really valuable throughout the training as well as on the day. I imagine. I'm sure that a few partners and families were involved in those recce days and route planning, and like was it Johnny said about being asleep in the car on the way back, and so they do play a massive role. So then we were going to ask Simon about the training and what kind of training regime you engaged in. So what did you do really, I guess, for physical conditioning, and how did that support your kind of mental preparation for it? And maybe even if you've got anything to say about nutrition as well, and how you sort of, well, although we've touched on that a little bit already, but.
Yeah, so I think to John's point around the social media, I managed to stumble across a Bob Graham training plan that a level 3 fell running coach had devised for someone else. So like you steal it and think, oh, I'll have a go at that. It was quite brutal, to be honest. It was 5 runs a week, Monday and Friday off, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as you would expect, local with a little bit of strength training, nothing too hard. And then obviously the weekends were your long runs, where you're trying to get it was 5 runs a week, Monday and Friday off, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as you would expect, local with a little bit of strength training, nothing too hard. And then obviously the weekends were your long runs, where you're trying to get it. So Monday and Friday off, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as you would expect, local with a little bit of strength training, nothing too hard.
Not me.
You got it playing.
You do go on, Simon.
I'd just like to repeat everything twice, John.
That was my fault. Sorry. I've gone up a temperature a 3 or 2. That'll teach me to try and reply to a Facebook post while on this.
So they come back to the long runs at a weekend, and they built up from 3-hour sessions on a Saturday and a Sunday all the way up to 9 hours on a Saturday and 8 hours on a Sunday, literally in the fells, just getting the climbing in. And it was too much for me, and I know I've shared it with you if anybody was interested. But it helped get you to where you needed to be. So I was climbing about, on average, 12 to 13,000 feet every single weekend. And you did need that Monday off, and you did need the Friday off before you actually go and do all the others again. But Tuesday and Thursday, I used to run with the club. Unstructured, but it would always be speed work and trying to get a little bit of strength work in. But it was very much around what your body can cope with. The plan was the ideal plan to get you as fit as possible, but it's that fine line between not pushing yourself too hard and actually just getting yourself where you need to be. I think I'll be the first to say I'm not as fast as these boys, so I probably had to work a little bit harder just to make sure I was going to be able to get round. But again, it started for me probably 18 months in advance, and ever since helping Mark do it, is from that day onwards, another year after that, I've got to keep training to make sure I could achieve it in a similar sort of time. So that worked for me. Anybody else want to? Mark, what about your training experience?
Well, I had the floods, didn't we? So we couldn't get to Dunmel Raise. So it hampered like the training because we couldn't get start leg 3, and we couldn't get to finish off 2. It was always that little bit problematic. But I was getting back and hamstring problems, so I still went out and trained, but probably not as much as I should, or what I wanted to do. I did all the legs at least twice, if not more, and knew that I could physically do it. Yeah, I just did like yourself, went out on weekends, but I just didn't do quite as many weekends. And it came up really quickly. I think from when I'm going to go and do a leg, it was like, Christ, there's not a lot of weekends free here. So you've got to get the training in. But I was probably maybe could have done a little bit more, but it was enough to meet the challenge. So I was lucky, thanks.
What about you, John and Chris? Did you follow like a structured training plan, or did you just work on building your mileage and doing the recce's?
I think with me, the important thing is it wasn't really miles per week. As long as you're ticking over during the week, that's all right. The important thing is just building up that time in the hills. There's a phrase in sort of fell running circles, fell hardness. You've got to train your body so that you can actually, just keep going uphill. And you can't do that. You can run 100 miles a week in Lincolnshire, and it's not really going to be the same as making sure. I try to get up every other weekend and just getting out in those hills and, getting the climbing. And it does it's a pain because it's a long way away and it's a big commitment that you've really got to, I think you've really got to be in those hills, and you've got to keep, you've got to keep that element going, through to when your round is basically.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it is. It's getting that fell toughness is the relevant phrase, really. I mean, I was running a lot at the time, and I was still playing football on Sundays, and I can remember one of the first times I tried to string two legs together, and I'd run the first leg, and then started going up Clough Head at the start of the second leg, and probably one of the first times I tried to string two legs together, and I remember sinking to my knees on the climb up Clough Head and resting my head on the ground and thinking, you haven't got a chance in hell of ever doing this. And I probably lay there for a few minutes feeling sorry for myself, and then got up and completed the leg. And you just gradually build that strength to be able to keep doing that, and actually build the mental strength by knowing you can go through those tough times and still keep going. Because all you got to do is just keep moving. You're going to have tough times on your round. You're going to have tough times when you're training, but you just got, as Simon said earlier, you're not moving at a very fast pace. So long as you keep moving forward, you can make that time up once you start to feel better again.
And I think that's the thing I was going to ask you really, was how that training helped you to get that mental state on the day that actually I'm ready and I can do it. So it's interesting, really. I guess part of it is overcoming those kind of challenges and getting yourself going in the training.
You have so many different experiences during when you're doing all the miles building up to it, and and there's so many people supporting you through your training as well as everything else. So you've got all that behind you. You've got the accumulated toughness as well as the accumulated fitness, and and you just got to draw on that when it comes to the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I can see that we've gone over the hour as predicted. You guys have got so much interesting information to share and some great experiences. I wonder if maybe, do you have any top tips for anybody who's thinking of giving it, if you could give somebody just one piece of advice, seeing as for a short time, if you could give people one piece of advice if they were thinking of taking this challenge on, what would it be?
Don't think about it, do it.
I like that one.
Just go for it. Yeah, it's great. It's a great journey.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll say get up there and train. You got to get up there and train get up there in the lakes and do the legs. Train there. That's it.
There's a little bit of writing on the homepage of the Bob Graham Club website, and it says at the bottom something like, the Bob Graham Club is not an elite clique of exceptional athletes. It's a bunch of like-minded people who revel in the freedom and beauty of the fells. So don't think to yourself, it's not for me, I can't do it. If you love being outside, if you love being in the mountains, get outside and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, do it.
Brilliant. Have you got anything else you wanted to ask, Shane?
No, I've learned a lot.
Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I could just talk to you for hours asking you all about your experiences, but I'm not sure that people in the group would appreciate that if we continue for hours all night. But yeah, it's been brilliant. I've noticed that there may be one or two questions in the stream. I don't think there's, I can see one or two. If you get a chance to have a look in the stream and maybe just answer them, that would be fantastic. I think we're probably running short of time to do that now. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much. Really enjoyed having you on to chat with us.
Pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And if you do, some of the resources that you've mentioned, if you do have any links to any of those, if you could pop those in the comments of the post, that'd be great, because I think a few people were commenting, suggesting a few podcasts and a few sort of websites. So yeah, I think those who are interested will be great for people to have a look at and take the plunge.
Yeah. Brilliant. And also, actually, the training plan that Simon mentioned earlier, if anybody wants to get hold of that, then if Simon doesn't mind me sharing it, then we've got that as well.
Yeah, I guess thanks everyone for watching. For our fabulous guests, and Anna for co-hosting, and me for disappearing and making life difficult halfway through questions. So keep an eye out for our next shows. So we've got one lined up in 2 weeks' time. Can we share any details on that yet, Anna? Should we wait?
No, let's wait. So there's one or two things just to firm up. But yeah, I think there's going to be 2 guests on the show.
Once, if we get that confirmed, that'll be a good one. So definitely tune in for that. And yeah, otherwise, I guess, yeah, thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye.